Hello and hello. Thank you so much for joining me today, especially those of you tuning in from your Passivhaus, which is probably 0 of you. Because for one, those people are trying to save energy, okay? They can't be watching YouTube. 2, more importantly, I don't think there's very many of these houses. Regardless, this is a really interesting concept and thing. I didn't know anything about it until I reacted to a video on my other channel about just the building differences between America and Europe. And they mentioned the Passivhaus in Germany, and I thought it sounded really interesting. And the fact that it's so hard to reach these standards of what a passive house is, apparently, it's just really interesting, like, that this is a thing. I just want to learn more about them. Undecided with Matt Farrell. Check him out, linked down below. Small and up-and-coming YouTube channel, guys.
This episode is brought to you by the Cooper Foundation.
Okay.
What if I told you that it's possible to build a house that uses up to 90% less energy than your current house? And combine...
Well, what's kind of funny is, even if it used 90% less energy than my house, I bet it still wouldn't be a passive house, because my house is horribly insulated. I mean, it's an American house, and it's got, it's got siding like this, kind of, where it's essentially just... I mean, yeah, you have insulation, you have studs, wood studs with insulation thrown in there. And then on the outside, just a piece of plywood and then this plastic thin siding. So even if you improved it by 90%, you probably need to improve it by 90 more percent to get to a passive house.
And that with solar panels, you could heat, cool, and even charge an EV for just a few $100s a year.
A year!
Let's take a closer look and explore passive houses. I'm Matt Farrell.
I mean, even just charging the EV would be your entire energy bill, right? If you're only paying a few $100 a year.
Welcome to Undecided.
This is actually the dude who made the video that I learned about, comparing America to Europe. So this is great.
Teslas and electric vehicles, solar and wind production, and energy storage.
Can we just say electric vehicles? I don't want to say Tesla and electric vehicles. Okay? I don't like Enron Musk.
Teslas and electric vehicles, solar and wind production, and energy storage like Powerwalls and Megapacks tend to get all the attention when we talk about ways to combat climate change. But it's going to take a wide array of solutions to make a real dent. And one of those that doesn't get talked about enough is how we build our homes to make them as energy efficient as possible. In 1996...
It's got to be the best way, right? I mean, using no energy is a really brilliant solution.
The passive house.
This is interesting. Darmstadt, Germany. There's actually a town an hour away from me called Darmstadt. And it is there's a bunch of German people that live there.
Institute in Darmstadt, Germany, set building standards to create low energy consumption houses that still provide comfort at an affordable price. Now, this demanding, performance-based, energy-efficient construction standard provides heating and cooling savings of up to 90% compared to conventional homes, and over 75% in relation to average new buildings. That's a pretty big gap, which raises the question of...
That's unbelievable. 10 times more efficient. That is unfreaking believable. So does that actually mean I need to use 10 times more energy to keep my house heated in the same conditions, like weather conditions? Because that's unbelievable.
How? Now, passive houses rely on 5 main principles. The first one is a highly insulated envelope. Quality insulation is fundamental to achieving great performance of a passive house design. Multiple layers of high-efficiency insulation materials are used to cover every surface from not just the roof and walls, but the slab and footing as well. The only exception is obviously the windows and doors. Now, all of this is to minimize the heat exchange with the outside environment. Some examples of these layers are rigid air boards, oriented strand board, taped sheathing, air barrier tape, and plywood sheathing. Thankfully, several high-performance insulation materials...
I'm wondering right now, windows must be one of the most difficult things to effectively insulate really well, right? It's got to be one of the worst insulated parts of any house. But they also provide light. So if you didn't have any windows, you'd have to have more lights, or you'd have to turn the lights on more often. So how does that even out, as far as energy?
Materials are also environment friendly, which
I
increases
wonder.
the benefits.
I mean, LED lights don't use much energy. But it would be depressing to live in a house with no windows, let's be honest.
Like sheep's wool and cellulose. The second principle is being thermal bridge free. Now, heat likes to escape to where it's colder, so the heat inside of a building will always try to go outside if it's cooler using the easiest path it can find. These are called thermal bridges, which are specific.
I don't even know if builders use this here in America. Maybe they do for newer houses, I don't know. I've never seen that. You know, this tool like actually measuring the thermals of the house for the insulation.
Areas of a building envelope where the insulation is the lowest value compared to the other areas, forming cold spots in the building. Now, if these spots become too cold, they could lead to the formation of moisture and condensation, so passive houses are built with the concept of being thermal bridge free. A house's studs can act as a thermal bridge, the same for a home's footings or basement slab. So a continuous layer of insulation from the first principle is essential. But one way to make this easier is to also minimize corners, bump outs, cantilevers, and dormers because they create geometric thermal bridges. It doesn't mean you can't have them, but they have to be accounted for.
This is crazy.
The third principle is an optimized orientation.
I mean, leave it to the Germans, you know, the awesome engineering out of Germany to even tackle this. This is a crazy problem to try to solve. The most efficient house possible.
With high performance windows and doors. Bad orientation combined with low performance windows and doors can cause significant heat gain or loss in a house, depending on the time of year. Now, in passive house buildings,
I mean, my old house was so badly insulated you could feel a draft from the front door. Obviously, that's on me. I could have insulated the door better, but I didn't.
triple pane windows and insulated frames are usually used. Triple glazed windows are composed of 3 panels of glass separated by a spacer. The airtight gaps between the glass are filled with an inert gas, like argon, which is a poor conductor of heat transfer.
Wow.
But even with these high-performance windows...
So if you break a window, is it like, hopefully that argon's not poisonous. I guess it's a very small amount.
Doors, there can be inefficiency if they're not well positioned. That's why homes built using the Passive House standard are optimally designed and placed to harvest natural light and heat coming from the sun. They take the surrounding environment into consideration when designing the structure and placement on the land. One reason for this is a technique called passive solar heating, which allows homeowners to collect, absorb, and distribute solar energy right through their windows and doors. Passive solar heating has to be tightly managed, though, to limit overheating in the summer and maximize heat gain in the winter. For instance, to optimize for heat gain, windows that feature a high solar heat gain coefficient are used on the southern side of a house, which means they let more solar heat through, which is ideal for the winter months. And then in the summer months, when the sun is higher in the sky, you have large roof overhangs to keep the sun out. Then on the east and west sides of the home, where the heat of the rising and setting summer sun...
I love this type of thing. This is so fascinating. I had no idea, to be honest, that people had thought this deeply into this issue. And I'm very glad you guys did.
...can't be blocked. You'd use low solar heat gain coefficient windows to keep the heat out. You can also use materials inside the house, like concrete floors, to absorb the heat coming in through the windows during the day. At night, they'll slowly radiate some of that stored heat back out.
Wow.
Also, deciduous trees are beneficial for providing shade on the house in the summer months, but allowing the sun's heat to pass through in the winter when the leaves are gone. The fourth principle is an airtight envelope. Passive house buildings are designed to minimize the number of holes in their envelope. All leaks around doors, windows, exterior electrical outlets, hose bibs, sill plates, you name it, they're all properly sealed in order to not only stop heat loss, but also to help reduce moisture buildup or loss in cold weather. Reducing cold spots and places where condensation can happen not only provides comfort, but also improves the air quality by eliminating the risk of mold growth. But an airtight envelope brings some problems like, I don't know, fresh air for breathing? Which brings me to the last...
Right, because you guys obviously open up your windows all the time for the... I almost called it the font. That's not what it is. That's this. It's the luften. You gotta luft the house. But that obviously is the opposite of insulating your house. Do you do that when it's cold outside?
Last principle. Mechanical ventilation. Now you might think that with an airtight design that people aren't allowed to open doors and windows, but they can. It's allowed.
I would hope so.
When you're trying to maintain...
Imagine, this is your new house. You've been gifted the new Passivhaus. You're never allowed to leave. You have to stay in your whole life in this house. Perfectly efficient. Never an ounce of inefficiency.
Comfortable temperatures in a home when the outside temps aren't ideal or in balance, that's when you have to rely on mechanical ventilation systems like heat recovery ventilators, which are HRVs, or energy recovery ventilators, ERVs. Now, these silent, efficient devices can provide
Never heard of them.
continuous, filtered, fresh air to the entire house while pushing the stale air out. HRVs and
No need to luften.
ERVs transfer heat.
Am I saying that right? Why do I all of a sudden... Luften. That is how you say it, right? Luften. I think I'm right.
Heat in order to achieve maximum efficiency and healthy inside air quality. But only ERVs transfer moisture as well as heat. Now, this explains why
Wow.
ERVs are usually preferred in areas
Fancy.
with high humidity and wide temperature ranges. In winters, the system uses the warm, stale air that's exhausted from the inside to preheat the incoming fresh air. Humidity can be added to the incoming air, which is great in the wintertime. And I don't know about you, but the older I get, the drier I seem to be getting with each winter. I could really use an ERV right now. In summers, the system conditions incoming warm, humid air by passing it over coils or channels.
Maybe I'm weird. My wife will say stuff like that, like, "Oh, my skin is so dry. It feels so dry out here." I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know. Maybe I've never thought about it, and so therefore I never cared. But I don't know. I could be dry, I could be moist, I don't know.
Containing stale, cool air being exhausted out of the house.
Ignorance is bliss, guys.
Desiccants are used to take humidity away from the fresh air coming in, which is good for a cooling effect. Depending on a passive house construction and the local climate, a dedicated heating and cooling system may not be necessary because the internal gains from the sun, cooking, and people just living inside the house. To get a good idea of how that might be
The people, it's so efficient that people in the house heat it up.
possible, just take a look at the difference in heating energy required between a passive house and a typical house.
Wait, so he just said that you might not even need any heating or cooling. It's just so perfectly devised with the sun and the tree and the weather and all the insulation tactics that it's just self-moderating itself perfectly. Given that you live in a reasonably temperate climate. That's amazing.
A Northern European passive house needs just 15 kilowatt hours of heating energy per square meter of floor space per year. A modern house would require 150 kilowatt hours. And a leaky house, which
That's me.
a lot of people live in, would need about 300 kilowatt hours. It's kind of a big difference. Passive houses can't be compared to other certifications like LEED and BREEAM Green Building Certification programs, which is something that I actually covered in a recent video. Passive House is just a performance-based energy efficiency design standard. The Passive House Institute accredits this certification, and within the Passive House standard, there are certifications for the house components, such as the building envelope, transparent components like doors and windows, and ventilation systems.
I assume they get some kind of grant or a subsidy or something if they meet these standards, right? Because what other incentive? Other than, of course, I mean, as the homeowner, yeah, I would pay more for a passive house, you know?
Also, not all buildings can be refurbished to the Passive House standard, so the EnerFit certification is used for retrofits to verify the consistent employment of Passive House components. The targets for an EnerFit house for the space heat demand and the space cooling demand is less than 25 kilowatt hours per square meter per year. It's not as good as a purpose.
This is super random, but you know how I described the walls of my house? I will say there's also a moisture barrier, but it's just like a really thin piece of plastic or whatever it is that helps keep moisture out. You know, it's in there somewhere.
Built passive house, but it's still dramatically better than a typical home. But is the cost to achieve all these benefits worth it? Before I get to that though, I'd like to thank today's sponsor, the Cooper Foundation. They're a nonprofit organization that's raising money to help children and young adults with special needs to get the help that they need. Craig and Christine Cooper, who are friends of the channel, started the foundation because they have a daughter with autism. She's a loving child that's mostly nonverbal and needs supervision most of the time. So they know how families could use a little helping hand. Over 85% of the donations go directly to helping kids with everything from summer camps to devices and equipment for helping with everyday living. The Cooper Foundation is always looking for real-world solutions that can make a meaningful difference. Like right now, they're raising money for
Best sponsorship ever.
an ADA-compliant playground for special needs children in Brook Park, Ohio. If you'd like to learn more, go to thecoopfoundation.com, and link is also in the description.
All right.
Thanks again to the Cooper Foundation and to all of you for supporting the channel. Now, according to the Passive House Institute, a passive home costs about 5 to 10% more than a conventional house.
That's it? Hold up. 5% more? So if it's $100,000, I mean, there are no $100,000 houses anymore. If it's a $300,000 house, it costs $315,000. And it's 90% more energy efficient. Sign me up. Sign me up.
But others estimate costs varying from 7 to 15%.
That's still not that much.
Usually as the
I
size
thought it would be double.
of the building increases, the cost difference to a typical house decreases. A study performed by the Passive House Trust in the UK analyzed the building costs of several passive house buildings, considering different construction methods and forms. The projects made in 2018 ranged from £1,296 per square meter to £807 per square meter, and the major extra cost for the construction was related to wall and roof structures. However, the cost for each project can vary depending on the size, complexity of the design, the level of finishes and materials, the builder that's contracted to lead the project, and other factors that can affect the building cost. Now, Passipedia, which is a great resource for passive houses, shows a study of conventional 149 square meter single family houses compared to a standard house over 30 years.
Let me just look up how big that is. They say 149 square meters. Okay, 1,600 square feet. Decent sized house.
In 2010, the additional investment added up to about 15,000 euros, or 8% extra, while in 2015, the total extra cost was reduced to 10,000 euros, or 5% extra.
That's it.
The calculated energy savings for heating over 30 years was 822 euros, with an annual
There you
additional
go.
cost of electricity for the ventilation system of 71 euros. In the end, the homes cut 432 euros in annual.
Every year. Every year. So, I mean, it does take 20 years to pay it off, but it obviously pays it off over the course of its life. And houses last way longer than 30 years. Way longer. Of course, especially ones, you know, like European houses, I assume, last way longer. I mean, even American houses last over 100 years, you know,
Cost.
if they're well maintained.
As good as all of that is, there's still improvements to be
And they don't get hit by a tornado.
made in techniques and components from small to large. And a good example of that is Swiss Spacer from Switzerland. They have a warm edge spacer that uses one spacer bar for all 3 panes in a window, providing lower weight, less risk of gas losses, as well as a long service life. Another example is straw panels by the Slovakian company Eco Cocoon. This wall system is made up of 98% natural materials, such as fiber layer and straw, and it can prevent heat loss, excess humidity, avoid thermal bridges, provides healthy indoor air quality, and building flexibility due to its custom-made dimensions. And when you think of straw and fire, you might be a little concerned, but because of their composition, they
Good
can
point.
actually resist fire for 120 minutes.
Damn.
Passive house have several advantages such as comfort, money savings, healthy indoor air, reduced energy bills,
This is really fascinating. This is very interesting. I really like this.
and long-lasting quality. Since the first passive house was constructed in 1991, which is still running by the way, there are more than 25,000 certified passive houses as
Oh,
of
there you go. So not very many. Why are there not more?
January 2020.
It doesn't cost that much more to build it. I mean, of course, the skill of the builders also comes into play, right? I mean, I guess ultimately, if there's no subsidies or anything, then you really need to have an educated citizenry. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. The people need to be educated. The house buyers need to be educated to know that they, you know, this house costs a premium for a reason. It's worth it, and over the life of you living there, it will hopefully pay for itself, or it will. Depends how long you live there, I guess. But also, it doesn't really matter because you know when you sell the house, it's going to have a premium on it. You know, it's worth more when you sell it. So if you sell it, you'll make up that money, and if you don't sell it, then it will pay for itself over the course of its year. You know, the premium you're paying on top of a normal house. And it's not that much more expensive. You might just say, oh, why is this one a little bit more expensive than this comparable house? Oh, well, your energy bill is going to be 8 times cheaper here. That would sell me on it, probably. For sure. For sure. And energy is getting more and more expensive here. I'm sure it is in Europe too.
Today, many countries...
People are actually outraged here where I'm from about the energy going up in price.
In some states here in the US provide grants and tax breaks for homeowners that install energy-saving materials in their houses.
And you get the grants.
There are also low interest rate loans in many areas to cover high efficiency projects just like these. And while the focus on clean energy generation like solar, wind, and energy storage is where a lot of the focus should be for combating climate change, we shouldn't forget about the energy conservation side. Things like passive houses can not only make a huge dent in our energy requirements, they can save us a lot of money in the long run too. And you don't have to do every single component of a passive home to make a difference. If you combine some passive house techniques with solar panel installations on your home, it's possible to achieve a net zero pretty easily, which is generating as much or more energy than you use. One family in Massachusetts did just that with an Oxford, Maine-built modular home from Bright Built Home, including heating, cooling,
They just built a home in 15 seconds.
water, and charging a Chevy Bolt. They pay a little over $400 a year for energy use.
Wow.
Now, I don't know about you, but I'd love to build a passive house or a net zero home. What do you think?
I think you need to, man. Oh my God. This guy's is like the best resource, at least English-speaking resource, it seems like to me, on the subject. This guy needs to build a freaking passive house. Where do we donate for that? I need that to be his next video. Building my passive house. That was fascinating. Thank you so much for watching. Go check out his channel, link down below. And I'll see you guys tomorrow.